Welcome back, guys, to another episode of The Misconception and the Opinion of the Conservative. I am here with Rich Kosich, and he is from Conshohocken, PA. He is also running for 2nd Ward.
That's right.
And we're going to get into a little bit of why he is running and what he plans on doing if he does win the election come 2026. Okay, so Rich, first off, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for letting me be here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yes, you're welcome.
Excellent.
Great. Now, Rich, let us know a little bit about your background and what you do in the political field.
Sure, no problem. So in Conshohocken, I'm chair of the Conshohocken Borough Republican Committee. I've been chair for the last 3 years now, I want to say.
Okay.
And I'm also vice chair of the Colonial Republicans, which is Conshohocken, Plymouth, and Montgomery, and White Marsh townships.
Okay.
So I'm pretty involved with leadership roles in those two positions.
Gotcha.
I'm also a writer, so I write freelance articles and things. I've been published in Broad and Liberty, and also I'm a community organizer. And as you know, I've worked for Americans for Prosperity. Last year, worked actually the last year and a half, I would say, to help get Dave McCormick elected.
Okay.
So, and that was grassroots manager in that position, and it worked. We worked really hard, and we changed the course of history because we got Dave McCormick elected. It was a close election, but I think all the hard work we did really paid off, and I was really happy about that.
Absolutely, it did.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Well, tell us a little bit why you are running, and also let us know what the position is.
Sure, no problem. So for your viewers who may not know, Conshohocken is a small borough about 11 miles due west of the Art Museum. And it's very small, so about 1 square mile, but we do have about 12,000 people there. We actually have, that was from the last census, however, we have more people because they just built 3 huge new apartment complexes down in the floodplain for whatever reason. So that added about another 2,000 people to our population. So we're probably closer to, like, say, 14,000 people, I want to say. Again, in a very small area. We're divided up into 7 wards. I am Ward 2, which is actually the smallest ward, because it's not apportioned correctly. Right. So again, there's 7 wards in the borough. I am running for Borough Council for Ward 2. And I'm running because I want to represent all of Ward 2 in Borough Council, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, doesn't matter to me. I just want to represent the people, their concerns, and bring them forth from Borough Council, and then keep the pipeline going. So anything that's happening in Borough Council, if they're considering bringing that back to the people, letting them know what's going on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now let us know, why do you want to run?
Basically, I want to run because right now, Borough Council is dominated by mostly all Democrats. We do have 1 independent from Ward 7, but it's all Democrats. And I just have the philosophy that I think that government works better when there's more involvement, more diversity of thought.
Yes.
So that's why I feel like I'm running in order to represent, again, the whole ward. But just maybe with a slightly different perspective than maybe what the current representative it is. So that's
okay. Well, let us know, what are some of the changes that you plan on doing if you are elected?
Changes. Well, again, basically, the idea is just, again, is to talk to my people, the people in the ward, and get their concerns and what their issues are right now, and get them from Borough Council. The big thing that's coming up right now is the reapportionment for the entire borough. So they are going to do that because of what I said before, because of the new apartment complexes that they just moved in. So my ward is only about 1,000 people, only about 1/3 of which are registered to vote. Because there was a lot of apartment buildings in my ward. So like I have an apartment building I rent, there's a lot of renters. It's just very, very lopsided. So they are going to proceed with this reapportionment. And I want to be able to be a part of that and represent the people that are going to wind up being in the 2nd ward, which hopefully will more even out with the other wards. Because Ward 1 right now had about 2,000 people, and that was before those new apartment buildings came in. So it's going to be heavily, say, gerrymandered towards that one ward. So they have some work to do there, and I definitely want to be part of it. So I've actually applied for being part of the a civic task force that they created for the borough. There's a representative from every ward in that task force that's going to work on the reapportionment.
Okay.
So that's going to be a very important issue coming up. So that's going to be the biggest change. I think that's going to really be affecting the wards going forward.
Okay. Now, you did mention there are a lot of renters in your neighborhood.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Are people not buying real estate as much? What has changed?
Not so much what has changed. I've been there for about 18 years, and it's always kind of like been that way. It's down closer to the river, so for whatever reason, more apartment buildings were built in that area.
Okay.
I chose that area because the back of my apartment has a beautiful view of the Schuylkill River, and then across you can see there's a hill there, and that's Lower Marion Township, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And you can see down where the apartment buildings are, and it's just a beautiful view. It's very peaceful and calming. So that's why I haven't moved, from the last 18 years, because it's
nice area.
Such a it's nice area, no crime.
Wow.
Good people, a lot of nice people, and that's kind of like why I want to.
Wow, I'm glad that you mentioned there's no crime. Because and I will say this because I wanted to know what are some of the issues in your community, and when I say your community, I mean the white community. Because, for instance, in the black community, you always hear about the crime issues. You always hear about, single parent homes, that's a big issue. Trash everywhere, that's another issue. What are some of the issues, would you say, in your community that you, that people may not know about or rarely, discuss?
That's a good question. I didn't mean to give the impression that Conshohocken is completely free of crime, because there are things that happen.
Well, yes, I get
periodically, like sporadically. You do hear someone get shot in front of a bar or something like that, or so we do, or there was like a car robbing or something like that, or Porsche pirates and things like that. So there are those instances there that we have that, but it's not endemic. It's not to the entire ward, which is good. As far as unforeseen things, the biggest thing that people really complain about, quite honestly, is parking.
Wow.
Because as I mentioned, there's a lot of apartment buildings down there, and a lot of them don't have parking, so people have to find street parking. I'm very fortunate that my apartment building does have a parking lot right in back.
Okay.
Which is very rare. So,
Wow.
So I just kind of lucked out in that respect. But when you talk to a lot of people in the ward about what their concern is, and typically it's parking. The other issue they have a lot with the upper wards, where there's more people who have their own homes, their own houses up there. They do have. They park in back, actually. Some of them do have parking back, so there's back streets behind every main street, like an auxiliary road, and that's where people use to park in back of their houses. Those roads back there are in very, very bad shape because they haven't. It's up to the actually individuals. The borough says it's up to the individual to maintain those back streets, and individuals haven't been doing that. So typically they're filled with potholes. They're very dangerous, and so that's, I know, a very concerning ongoing issue in Conshohocken. It's like who's going to pay for those back roads that those auxiliary roads, because the people obviously don't want to do it. The borough doesn't want to do it, so you're left at kind of like an impasse, and basically the roads just keep getting worse and worse, which is kind of symbolic of how government sometimes works or doesn't work when they can't figure out who's responsible for what, and then in the process, the infrastructure goes to pot, so to speak.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Yes, definitely. Now, let's fast forward, because I know you support, the Republican Party. This is a big issue now. People are discussing and throwing candidates' names out there who should run in 2028.
Right.
Is there any Republican candidate that you would like to see on the ballots come 2028?
You mean for the general election?
For the presidential election.
General election. That's a good question. So going forward, I think obviously Trump is term limited, so he can't run again. So there's been some things thrown out there, scuttlebutt about maybe J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio has been mentioned. I think that would be an excellent combination. I would certainly support that enthusiastically. I kind of like to see a woman as vice president, so maybe Nikki Haley or someone like that. I think that would, or Kristi Noem, or it's Lee Stefanik, I think it is. She's the representative for New York State. She might be running for governor.
Sure who she is. Okay.
Yeah, so she's a very intelligent woman. I've seen her on C-SPAN, some of those congressional hearings. She's smart, she's tough, which I really like. Yeah, and she really took it to the Governor Holcomb there when she came before Congress there in one of those congressional meetings that they had, and Stefanik really held her feet to the fire. It was an amazing thing to behold. So someone like that I think would be really great. I personally like to see. But I think we're in a strong position, Republican Party is in a really strong position going into the next general election. But then again, it's so far away. I mean, it's like light years. I mean, anything could happen between now and then. Remember when during Trump's first term, he was cruising to a second re-election. I mean, he was the economy was doing great. Wages for the first time were increasing for people of all different races and ethnicities, which was great. In the African American community, we're actually finally seeing some raises in terms of income. And then COVID hit, and that dislodged
slowed us down, right?
That threw a monkey wrench into the machinery. So who knows what's going to happen, 2 years from now? But I'm hoping and praying that that's not going to be the case, and we're not going to have a repeat. Of something like that.
Well, let me ask you: do you think? I would say, what do you think about Gavin Newsom? He's the governor of California. Now, people are saying he may run for president. Is that someone you would support?
Gavin Newsom? Most likely not. I don't think so.
So he's a little extreme?
Yeah. I mean, I'm on X, used to be Twitter. I have an X account there, and I have a feed, and somehow he keeps reappearing in my feed all the time. Him and his press office, and they're, based on what he's saying, he just comes across as being increasingly unhinged. Like the president's really beginning to get under his skin, and some of the things he's saying and doing. It seems like he's spending more time posting on X than he is worrying about governing his own state, from what I've been able to see. So maybe he should just word of advice to him. He obviously doesn't have to take it. Maybe he should lay off the tweeting and the X, and be more concerned about, like, say, for example, helping the fire victims out that still haven't gotten any relief and apparently haven't started building after that fire.
Well, people would say, Donald Trump, he does a lot of tweeting and things of that sort. They might, say the same thing. They do say the same thing about him, but he's still very effective at running the country. I will say that.
Yes.
So,
but 100%. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is major also. What do you think about AOC and Miss Jasmine Crockett? Jasmine Crockett, she thinks that she should run the Democratic Party. What do you think about those two women?
Well, it's a good question. So basically, as far as Jasmine Crockett goes, I think she just did try to run for one of the I
forget what it was called.
One of the congressional.
It was like the head of the Democrat Party. I forget the.
It was one of the what do they call those? So. In Congress, they divided it up based upon committee assignments. So it was one of the committees that she was trying to run for.
Right.
And she came in, I think, like fourth place out of like four candidate or five candidates. So even her own party considers her a little on the extreme side. So they might like her in terms of the role she's doing now and being very vocal and very critical of the president. That's certainly true. But in terms of actually her ability to actually lead committee hearings and pull people together, which you really have to do and form consensus. It seems like her own party is not very confident for being able to do that. So so I think any political aspirations she might have, I think would have to come up with that against that reality. She would have a hard time even convincing her own people to support her. So I mean, and in fact, I was just watching a documentary on her the other day on X. This Benny Johnson, I think the guy's name. He's a journalist, and he does blogs and stuff. And he was actually did a little 10-minute documentary on where she grew up, the school she went to, and it's a total dichotomy in terms of she went to very, very exclusive schools. And I think first was Illinois. It was like a high school, $13,000 a year, which is pretty insane for high school.
Right.
And then from there, she went to a very exclusive college. Again, they figured by the time she was done, they spent about $1 million on her education. $1 million, which was unbelievable. And then she adopts a persona that doesn't really reflect that, so it's kind of ironic.
Yeah. So. Okay. Well, yeah, and I appreciate that opinion, and that was very strategic. So now I do. There are some, theories, myths, whatever you want to call it, that the Black community has on Republicans. I seen a comment on social media that said all Republicans are racist. What is your thoughts on that? Because here's my thing. Black people, all right, we're so quick to run to white schools, right? We want to put our kids in white schools. As soon as we get a little money, we want to go to the white neighborhoods, the white suburban neighborhoods. Those are white people. Do you think everybody there is Democrats? No, they're not. So to me, that's kind of silly to say all Republicans are racist, because why would you want to send your kids to an all-white school, right? Why would you want to live amongst white people that you feel are racist? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So how do you feel about that? What would be your response when someone says something of that nature?
This was on social media, you saw that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, she said, all Republicans are racist. This is the mindset that some of us have.
Yeah, some people have that mindset especially on social media, because I do follow like on X and on Facebook, and people say outrageous things like all the time there that they might not say to you actually in person. Like I've experienced that with like my best friend, Ken, who's a great guy. I love him, like my brother. He's the oldest friend I have, but he actually defriended me on Facebook because of politics.
Wow.
Right? Because he turned, I call him Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because he's Dr. Jekyll when you meet him in person, and anybody would really love the guy, but on social media he's the evil Dr. Hyde.
Another person.
Yeah, a completely different person. And unfortunately social media seems to have that effect on people. They feel more emboldened to say outrageous statements like that than they do certainly than like you and I were talking like
in person.
That's because they're more emboldened. But when we have to deal with people face to face, we realize we're more like them than not. We have more in common than we don't.
Right.
So that's the way I like to look at those relationships, is that, all right, so what do we have in common? What are our common goals? What can we work towards together? Put all the other nonsense aside, and let's see if we can get something done, because as you know, life is so short, right? We're only here for a short period of time. It's over in the wink of an eye. So I like to be able to look back on my life and say, all right, well, at least I tried to bring people together to do something positive for the community.
Right. Wow. That is a beautiful answer.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you would say that it's not true, basically. It's not true.
I would disagree with that.
To put everybody in one category.
Yeah, of course.
Insane.
I think most people know that. Most people, sane people, realize that. Of course, you're going to get hardcore people on both sides. Both sides do extreme things like that. I've seen some pretty nasty things from the right, and that really irritates me. By the way, like when I see people on the right making outrageous statements against people, I usually will slap them down and say, this is ridiculous. Don't fall into that trap of doing things like that. Because it just gives the other side more ammunition to lobby back at you, because then they can say, well, look at this guy, look what he said, look what she said. So you have to stand up to the extremes in your own party, which is very hard to do, and I think the Democrats are having a very difficult time doing that now. The last guy that really was able to do that in the Democratic Party, I think, was Bill Clinton back in the day, and he stood up to you might be a little young for this, I don't remember, but someone, Queen Latifah. Have you ever heard of her before?
Queen Latifah?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay. So back in the '92 election, she said something pretty outrageous, and Bill Clinton stood up and actually publicly chastised her for it. And said that's you shouldn't be saying something like that. That's not true. That's outrageous. That doesn't help. And as far as I know, he was the last Democrat that was able to do that, and now they don't have anybody that seems like that can stand up the extreme in our party, which is why the extreme is taking over. Which is why you have people in New York, this Mamdani guy. I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name wrong.
Mamdani,
Yeah. So and then there's a couple others around the country too now. So the Democratic Party.
AOC is one of those people, just so far left.
I mean they're socialists without a doubt, and it's a very different philosophy from what the conservative approach is. It's just just polar opposites, and those two things can't exist at the same time in the same space, right? Only one can win out, and that's where the friction comes, the battle between those two. So very interesting to see that, but I think the Democratic Party is heading far left right now, and the Republican Party is in the sedans, which is great, and I hope we will continue to be so in the future. Coming forward.
So I do also want to ask, as far as President Trump and what he has been doing.
Sure.
How do you feel now? What he is planning on doing is sending the National Guard, out in D.C., Maryland as well. Who knows? Maybe Philadelphia, because Conshohocken sits right outside of Philadelphia.
Sure.
How do you feel about the National Guard going into these crime-infested areas? Do you think it would be beneficial? Do you think it's a little too much, or it's just right? What do you think?
Well, that's a good question. So I find it just amusing that the left right now is hammering him on that decision to send in the National Guard, because Kathy Hochul, if I recall, did the same thing when she called in the National Guard to patrol the New York subway system because it had gotten so crime infested. So she did not seem to have a problem calling in the National Guard when she needed it. But now that President Trump is doing it, apparently that's all bad.
Wow.
Right. So and the National Guard has been called out on occasion to guard different sites that might be there might be a problem, security problem or something like that. So I just find it kind of amusing that they're really bashing Trump for that.
Wow.
So as far as I understand, this is only a 30-day notice right now. So I think it's only going to be for 30 days, although they might want to try and extend that based upon the results they've had. But from what I've seen and read in the media, assuming that's correct, they've already gotten some pretty decent results. They've already, I think, arrested like 100 people, 46 of which were in the country illegally. They took, they found drugs, they found illegal guns. So it is producing results. So I'm happy to see that.
It's effective.
It is effective, and they have been interviewing people. These Fox have been interviewing people down there, and the ones they've been interviewing for the most part are very happy to see that, especially in the African American communities that have experienced so much crime. They're happy to see that there are more police there patrolling it, and they're grateful for that.
Right. So, you know what I think it's people don't realize what you just said. They are actually happy. But it's just online, and what the media puts up, it's a whole nother story. You would think people hate it. They hate what Trump is doing. When in reality, they actually approve of it. And that's the thing, So we have to actually come outside, talk to real people and stop looking on the news. And because what you're going to see online and on TV is not going to be accurate, I would say.
Reality,
it's not reality, right?
Yeah.
That's the word. So, definitely. I love that. Okay, so next, let's get into President Trump, who has a plan on charging teenagers as adults when they commit a violent crime. How do you feel about that? Because I think that's something that does need to happen, because I feel that, right from wrong. You don't have any mental health issues, I think that that's the next step, because, the teenagers, they're not scared of the police officers. They're not scared of their parents, clearly, or they wouldn't be out here committing these type of crimes. So how do you feel about children being charged as adults for violent crimes?
You mean adolescents being charged as adults?
Not children, I'll say teenagers, yes.
Teenagers, yeah. So I know it's a hot topic right now, and the president has mentioned that before. And obviously that would involve changing the laws, which is not an easy thing to do, but it's an interesting concept because, like you said, the teenagers really aren't scared of the police. It seems like they're not really too concerned. They know nothing's really going to happen to them. If they do get caught, they can't really be charged. I have spoken to police officers before about this topic, and they say that they're very frustrated because they will go, basically the best thing they can do is just go to the parents' house and knock on their door and say, did you know your son or daughter was involved in such and such activity today? And unfortunately, the police that I've spoken with typically say the parents really don't care. They just don't care. So, which is very unfortunate, and that's probably why the children don't care either.
Right.
So, what do you do in a situation like that? Apparently, you hear stories at night. You see the news and stuff about these kids hijacking cars. People and some people have gotten hurt because of it. So
severely.
Some people died actually. I've seen and heard some terrible news stories about that. So I think in certain circumstances, extreme circumstances like that, I probably would think that might be something they really need to look into and make the penalties more fit the crime, and regardless of the age of the individual.
Definitely, I agree. Yes, absolutely. Now, some people do say that it's the government's fault. That these children, I keep saying children, but the youth is unruly, and they feel that, there's not enough resources, and they're blaming, their actions, their violent actions on the government. When personally, I feel that it's the parents that they should be looking at. It's their responsibility. The government isn't raising your child, you are,
right?
So exactly. How do you feel when people, what do you think when someone says, it's the government's fault? We tend, and especially in the Black community, we blame everything on the government. It's silly. It doesn't make any sense. So how is it the government's fault? I don't get it. But go ahead.
I mean, that's a good question. So I think some people on the left have brought up the proliferation of guns, for example.
Okay.
They feel like the gun laws need to be tightened up to get some of these guns off the street, which I probably would agree with some of that. So that's something I think that they're saying, and that probably going to be looked into. But it's like you said, it's really the parents that are responsible for their children. That's the first line of defense always.
Right.
And if that isn't there, I mean, there's it's really hard for the government to substitute for the parents because they're just not involved with the child. They're just not that involved.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of money spent on these harm reduction programs, I know, in the cities. And in fact, Inquirer did an article about this not too long ago. And unfortunately, they say a lot of the money winds up going to these NGOs, and they don't
never
hear.
Reaches.
They never hear about it. They have no follow up. They have no idea how good it was, what it was doing. And that's a real issue. That's a real problem.
Yes, definitely.
So you can shovel a lot of money into these NGOs and these communities, but without any follow-up and the expectation of success, it's very hard to gauge how successful those programs have been. Yeah. So I think that's something they really should look into too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, where the money is going.
Absolutely. Accountability.
Definitely. Yes, accountability is definitely a big one. Absolutely, I agree. All right, Rich. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Okay. I appreciate your time. And good luck in the race.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Tiffany. And thank you for your time.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
You're welcome. And thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, have a great week.
And don't forget, Rich Kosich for Ward 2. I need your vote, so I really appreciate it. And thank you very much.